Commander Zephyk stood motionless in the icy rain, droplets sliding down the ridges of his sensory plates and pooling at the edges of his uniform collar. The storm was unpleasant by his species standards, but what truly made his military pride wither was the sight before him. 3 human teenagers, barely past their adolescent maturation cycles, assigned to train him in survival. Galactic Command's orders replayed in his mind: all officers must complete Earth survival certification before deployment to frontier zones. He had commanded warships for 40 years, negotiated treaties, defeated pirates, and navigated radiation storms. Yet here he was, stuck in a muddy clearing on Earth, being told his instructors were juveniles. His disbelief simmered close to outrage. "You expect me to learn from adolescents?" he said, his voice strained between disbelief and insult. Cadet Rowan Vasquez, the eldest at 17, stepped forward. He had a lean, weathered look, skin tanned by sun exposure, posture relaxed yet alert. A veteran outdoorsman despite his youth. Rowan answered with a politeness that felt more like discipline than respect. "Sir, with respect, you commanded warships in climate-controlled environments. That's different from surviving here," Rowan said calmly. "On Earth, everything is trying to kill you. Age doesn't matter. Experience does." "I am a decorated officer," Zephyk replied sharply. "Then you'll learn fast," Rowan said. "Now drop and give me 20 push-ups. We start with physical assessment." Zephyk stared at him, certain he had misheard. "Excuse me?" "Sir, this is a death world," Rowan said, tone thinning. "Gravity here is higher than 80% of habitable planets. Atmosphere is denser. Temperature swings are brutal. Before we teach you to survive, we need to know if your muscles can even move here." Beside Rowan stood Cadet Lena Flores, 16, short but built like she ran marathons for fun. To her right stood Miguel Torres, 18 but youthful, carrying a data pad and scanning the treeline. All 3 watched the alien officers without a shred of doubt or intimidation. "Begin the assessment or return to your ships," Lena added. "We still have 47 groups to train this month." Zephyk reluctantly lowered himself into the mud. The moment he pushed up, Earth's gravity crushed him like a weighty hand. His arms trembled violently. He managed 3 shaky push-ups before collapsing face-first into the wet soil. Rowan didn't mock him. "As expected. Your bodies aren't adapted. We'll fix that." The next 4 hours unfolded like a slow humiliation ritual, though none of the human cadets treated it that way. They operated with the efficient calm of people who had done this dozens of times before. Once Zephyk and the 6 other alien officers recovered from their failed push-ups, the cadets moved them straight into environmental adaptation drills. The forest around them felt alive in a hostile, predatory way. Strange sounds echoed from the canopy, chirps, clicking, rustling, and distant growls that made several alien officers instinctively reach for non-existent weapons. The humans didn't flinch. Rowan strode ahead like the terrain belonged to him, pushing through branches, stepping over roots, occasionally kneeling to inspect claw marks or plant growth. "These are edible," Rowan said, gesturing to a patch of broad green leaves. "High in carbohydrates. Boil them if you can, but eating them raw won't kill you." Zephyk crouched, still breathing hard from the hike. "How do you know this? You are children." Rowan glanced back at him, shrugged lightly. "We grew up here. Earth teaches or Earth kills." Lena knelt beside a small stream, scooping water into a makeshift filter made of sand, gravel, and charcoal. "Most human kids learn basic survival before age 10, she added. "By 15, advanced skills are standard. It's normal here." Another alien officer protested weakly. "But you have cities, technology, shelters. Why learn primitive methods?" Lena tied the filter shut and lifted it. "Because technology fails. Cities get destroyed. Disasters happen every year. If you can't survive with only your hands and your knowledge, then you're just waiting to die when your gear breaks." Miguel reappeared from deeper in the forest, wiping rain from his brow. "Weather update," he said. "Temperature will drop to freezing tonight. We need better shelter or you'll lose digits." Zephyk's sensory ridges twitched in alarm. "Freezing? It was 25 degrees this morning." "Welcome to Earth," Rowan said as if announcing a menu special. 30-degree temperature swings are normal. Prepare for extremes." By nightfall, exhaustion had deepened the lines on Zephyk's face. The human cadets had guided them through fire-starting drills, demonstrating friction and tinder, then had them practice until smoke finally rose. They built shelters using branches, leaves, and bark, showing the aliens how to angle structures against wind chill. Hours passed and the forest grew darker, colder, louder. And through it all, the teenagers moved with ease, humans shaped by a world that demanded mastery or death. By the time the moons, barely visible through Earth's thick cloud cover, rose into the sky, the alien officers were huddled inside the shelters the cadets had helped them build. Fires crackled outside, snapping and hissing as damp wood dried and caught flame. The warmth was a blessing, but Zephyk could not shake the feeling that the darkness beyond the firelight was watching them. The forest felt different at night. The wind moaned through branches like something alive. Insects chirped in unnerving rhythms. Somewhere far off, a predator roared, a guttural resonant sound that made Zephyk's spine stiffen. He turned to Rowan, who sat calmly feeding a fire with dried tinder. The light flickered across the teenager's face, giving his features an eerie maturity far beyond his years. Zephyk finally voiced the question that had been gnawing at him. "You are so young," he whispered. "How can you be this capable?" Rowan didn't look up immediately. He poked at the fire, letting the sparks rise before answering. "Because Earth demands it, Commander. You come from a garden world, controlled climate, predictable seasons, safe environments. You evolved in comfort." Lena, sharpening a stick into a spear, added, "We didn't. Humans survived ice ages, predators, diseases, volcanic winters, and things we don't even have names for anymore. Our ancestors lived because they adapted faster than the world could kill them." Miguel returned from a brief patrol, brushing leaves off his jacket. "Speaking of things that kill, there's a predator nearby. Big one. Tracks are fresh." Zephyk bolted upright. "What kind of predator?" Miguel shrugged. "Doesn't matter what species. What matters is that it hunts at night and it's too close." He tossed a handful of stones into a perimeter line to create a noise alarm. "We'll set barriers." The three cadets moved with synchronized precision, silently demonstrating defensive techniques, stacking branches, creating trip hazards, marking wind direction and positioning fire so the light wouldn't blind them to movement. Zephyk watched, humbled beyond words. "You protect us," he said quietly, more realization than admiration. "That's what you do on a death world," Lena replied. "You protect the vulnerable. You watch for danger. You never fully rest. Eventually it stops being a skill. It becomes instinct." For the first time in decades, Zephyk felt something unusual for a veteran commander. Fear mingled with awe. He realized the universe had misunderstood humans. They weren't dangerous because they were aggressive. They were dangerous because they were adapted. Dawn arrived slowly, pushing away the night like a reluctant tide. Pale light filtered through the treetops, illuminating the small camp. Zephyk blinked awake, surprised to find himself still alive, and even more surprised to see the cadets already on their feet. Rowan stood near the treeline, scanning the ground for tracks. Lena was dismantling part of the shelter to repurpose the materials into travel packs. Miguel was high in a tree, tying a marker ribbon to a branch for future trainees. "You're awake," Rowan said without turning around. "Good." The predator moved on. "Our barriers convinced it to try elsewhere." Zephyk sat up, rubbing the stiffness from his arms. "You protected us while we slept." "That's what we do," Lena replied simply. "On Earth, if you don't keep watch, you die. So we keep watch." Miguel dropped from the tree with the casual ease of someone stepping off a stool. "And you all slept like rocks." Loud rocks. The alien officers exchanged embarrassed glances. Their pride had already taken a beating, but this further emphasized the gulf between them and the humans. The teenagers weren't just competent, they were experts. Earth wasn't their home by accident, it was their forge. The week passed in a blur of punishing drills and constant adaptation. Zephyk learned to walk without stumbling on uneven terrain, to identify plants that healed and plants that killed, to build heat-trapping shelters, to follow the position of the sun and stars for navigation. He learned how to ignore pain, breathe under strain, listen for danger, and remain alert even when exhausted. And slowly, painfully, he began to improve. By the final day, the alien officers stood before the three human cadets, mud-stained, sore, hungry, and changed. Rowan held a small data pad containing their results. "You have completed basic Earth survival," he announced. "You can now function in environments that would have killed you 7 days ago." Zephyk accepted his certification, but the paper wasn't what left him humbled. It was the realization that everything he knew about strength, experience, and maturity had been rewritten. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "You have taught me that age and rank matter less than adaptation. Less than understanding your environment." Rowan nodded once. "You're welcome, Commander. Now go command your ships. But if you ever need to survive without them, you know what Earth taught you." As Zephyk boarded his shuttle, he looked back one last time. The three cadets were already preparing for the next group, children by galactic standards, but survivors by every measure that mattered. And the galaxy, Zephyk realized, would never see humans the same way again.